Welcome to my studio. My name is Ray Campbell, and this week on my channel we're going to be painting this really cute little chap, this gorgeous, delightful penguin using watercolour in easy to follow steps. Let's get to it.
Christmas is just around the corner, coming up just around the bend.
This week on the Wonders of Watercolour we're going to be painting this gorgeous little penguin, a really lovely project to do, and I'll show you how to do it with easy to follow steps. It doesn't matter what level you're at, I'm going to help you create this gorgeous little piece. Now if you don't like drawing, don't worry, we provide you with an outline that looks like this for completely free, and I'll tell you later on in this video how you can have access to that. But in the meantime, let's press on with this painting. I'm using a sheet of roughly A5 sized watercolour paper. This one is a rougher surface, it's just my personal preference. This is from Arches, but use any paper that you want to. So this is a cute little chap, and we're going to paint him with just a handful of colours today. Nothing special, just easy going, relaxing watercolour. So let's press on with our first wash. I have a clean glass of water, I have some kitchen paper and my mixing palette here, and some paints. The paints I've chosen to use for today are from Mungo. Now I do recommend that if you're using pan paints like this, or indeed any watercolour paints, to make yourself a little colour chart that looks like this. Each of these colours represents the colours in my set, and it makes it easy to identify the colours when I'm looking at the swatches like this. It's very difficult to see how these colours are going to look on paper, so by adding a little bit of water, a little bit more water and a little bit more water, you can see when they're swatched out how they're going to perform on watercolour paper. So I highly recommend that you do this for each of your watercolour sets. It just makes mixing the colours a whole lot easier. I'm going to add a puddle of water to my mixing palette, and with my number 8 round I'm going to pick up a nice puddle of black paint. Now we want this paint to be quite thick. You will often hear me say with watercolour you need to build your layers up slowly and carefully. But because this is more of a kind of cartoon type creature, we don't need to worry so much this time, because the idea is that we get the thicker wash on to begin with. This is ivory black, and I'm going to take a tiny bit of indigo to that, just to take that starkness out of it a little bit. We can even vary it a little bit if we want to, like that. So we've got a nice thick layer of paint. It may be that we need to do more than one layer, but let's see how we go. I'm going to take a number 4 brush as well, so that I can add the smaller areas at the top of his face or her face. Okay, so let's go in with the number 8 brush first of all, and we're just going to apply this straight onto the watercolour paper using the number 8 brush, following that pencil line. Straight on, nice and easy. You can see how thick this paint is, but because we are going in with just 1 or 2 layers, it's highly unlikely that this will go muddy and look overworked. Straight on, give it a nice mix, and straight onto the paper like this. Notice the consistency of the paint here. It's quite gloopy, and it does mean that you don't have to keep going over and over to get the darkness that you need. It may be that we need another layer, but we are going to do these step by step, just following that pencil line like that. Do the same on the other side, around the little bow tie, straight down, I'm scooping up the pigment with my brush, now if you want to practice your watercolour skills, what you can do when you get to this point here, clean your brush, give it a good old mix in the water, tap off the excess onto your kitchen paper, and then with a damp brush you can start to move it here so that you get a little bit of graduation on the wing. Only if you want to, you don't have to do this. I'll show you again. Cleaning my brush, patting off the excess, and then I'm starting here, not right in the pigment, and then just picking up the pigment with my brush. So you get a little bit more graduation, and it's all practice. But you have to keep repeating it so that you get this lovely blur from one colour to the other. And it just makes the tip of the wing look a little bit faded, if you like that look. Of course, we haven't done it on this side, I'm very aware of that, but it's just a little technique to show you how to spread that watercolour pigment to get a nice graduated wash. Okay, I'm going to switch to my number 4 brush. Again, picking up that pigment, and we're going to go onto the underside here. Take your time. Just follow the outline that you've done. So this is ivory black with a tiny bit of indigo. It softens the black somehow. It doesn't matter. You can use any black that you have in your set. It doesn't have to be anything special. To alleviate that look of it overlapping, what we're going to do is go over that to re-wet it, and that will make that lovely smooth transition that we want. I'm just using the tip of the brush to push that pigment into that pencil line. I'm turning the paper around because it does make application a little easier, and it means that you can see what I'm doing. So straight onto the paper. You could use gouache to do this if you wanted to. It would work just as well, actually. So you could give that a go if you like to use gouache or even Inktense pencils. Let's follow along with us here. So that's on, and then we're going to take that brush and just follow the line really carefully, working around the face. And you can see how I'm just sort of colouring in with the tip of the number 4 brush. Use your favourite brush. Nice and easy. Working around. You can really take your time. Picking up the pigment. And working down to the beak. Taking care not to get any black on that area because we're going to be painting that a different colour later on. So take your time. So we're going to get a nice even coverage. The key is to get enough paint mixed at the start. Okay, you want to get a nice drop of water in there so that you've got enough pigment and it isn't a dry mix. You don't want this mix here to be sticky and dry. You want it to be very movable with enough water and enough pigment. That's the secret to getting a really good wash on like this. Too dry, you're not going to get any colour payoff. And if it's too wet and watery, you're going to have to keep going back in to pick up that pigment. Now we've got a hard edge here, so we're going to go around that bit first of all, around the bow, and we're going to go back over that colour like this. And we've got a hard edge here, so we're going to take that in to this colour, wet the brush, and then just blend it. Do feel we need to go over this bit a little bit to make it lovely and sharp, and of course we can tidy up any edges later on, but for this first wash, just get this colour on nice and strong and even. And that's it. Now for the eyes, again let me zoom in for you. There are 2 little circles that are the highlights. You don't have to paint around them. You could use something like a gel pen, or you can do the little circle. In fact, we're going to use a gel pen. We'll use the gel pen to make it easy. So we're going to put these in. I want to make this as easy as possible. You can either use a white gel pen to put the little dots in, the little highlights, or you could use a little bit of white gouache or some bleed-proof white or something like that. But let's get this on. That's looking really nice. So check the shape, make sure that they are relatively even, and just tidy that up. If you want to go over some of the areas that are looking a little patchy, that's fine. And that's our first wash. All we have to do now is let this dry. We can start to put some more of the features in. I'm going to see you in a moment once this is dry. So this has had about 20 minutes or so to dry, so everything's completely touch dry now, so we can start to think about the other colours. I have cleaned my palette down, but there is one thing I'd like to do before I do anything else, and that's just put a little bit of shading on the belly. You haven't got to do that if you don't want to, but I think it would just add a little bit of something. So I'm just going to add some water to my palette with a tiny bit of Ivory black in the mix and a tiny bit of Indigo. Just like that. We just need the smallest amount. Then, with some water, I'm just going to take it to the edge where these two meet. There is a little bit of pigment on the brush there, but that's okay. Just a tiny bit, and then I'm picking up that colour and just dropping it in. It just takes the starkness out of it and just gives it a little bit of interest. And if you wanted to, you could just pick a bit more pigment up and just drop it in. And then what you need to do is take a clean brush and soften that out. Now obviously it's a lovely Christmas hat, so we're going to add bright reds. Looking at my colour chart, I quite like the look of permanent red mixed with scarlet. This will give me a beautiful, vibrant colour to begin with for our base colour. So let's just take a look to see how that looks. So we'll have permanent red. It's got a kind of like a pinky tone. And to that, I'm going to mix some scarlet, which is that lovely, bright, vibrant colour. I'm going to add a bit more scarlet. I want a nice orangey red for that colour. So what we're going to do is just pick this up and straight onto the watercolour paper with my number 4 brush, carefully working around the white section. Again, you can see the consistency of the paint because we're not layering it up in the way we would normally do with watercolour. This is a great way of just getting the colour on without worrying about it going muddy, as I mentioned before. When you're working with layers with watercolour, it's important that the texture is correct depending on what you're painting. So this is what we're looking to achieve when we're painting something like this. Just to let you know, here on the Wonders of Watercolour, generally speaking, we paint botanical paintings. They're all full length and they're all completely free. So you can watch them in their entirety and learn to paint as you paint. We've got over 200 tutorials now. I think I mentioned that earlier on. And I'd love to see you subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And of course, hit the like button below if you're enjoying my content. But you can head over to Patreon to obtain the free outline for this little chap here. But we do have a paid membership over on Patreon where you won't find any of the tutorials here on YouTube. They are written exclusively for my patrons. They are all botanical paintings. So if you really enjoy that really fine detail and you like to paint step by step, and even depending on your membership level, have some one-on-one feedback with me, you can join our Patreon and let's just have a little look to see what you get. When you join Patreon, you will have access to exclusive content that you just won't find here on YouTube. Whether you're a seasoned artist or just dipping your brush into botanical watercolour, you may want to join us here on Patreon where the magic happens. And with Patreon's new collections tab, it makes accessing the tutorials super easy. When you join us here on Patreon, we dive deep into the art of botanical watercolours, from vibrant blooms to fine detail, and I'm here to guide you every step of the way. We have 3 membership levels to suit your skill and budget, and we even have a mentorship and coaching level, so if you're serious about developing your skills, then this could be the level for you. And now you can join Patreon for free, which will give you access to all of our YouTube traceables, which will be delivered weekly to your inbox, so no more scrolling through for the images. So if you are ready to embark on a watercolour adventure, unlock exclusive content and join a community that celebrates the beauty of botanicals, hit that join button, which I will link in the description. So if that's something that interests you, please join us there. It's a way that you can support my channel, and also it means that I can continue doing this. Right, we've got that red on there. I'm just going to add a little bit of Indian yellow to this mix, and I'm also going to have a little bit of Indian yellow on its own. So we've got a lighter colour here. So we've got Indian yellow mixed in here and Indian yellow on its own, and I'm going to put this on the beak. The Indian yellow will go all over. So this will be our base colour. This is dry, by the way. It has to be completely dry. If you put this on wet, it's going to merge into that black paint and become a muddy mess, or it'll just look really untidy. So paint that on to begin with. And then we're going to let that dry. And I'm also going to take this colour to form the base tone of the, I was going to call them feet. The feet, we'll call them the feet. Okay. I'll get this on first of all. Again, I'm still using my number 4 brush. Use any brush that you want to, that you enjoy using. So this is the first layer of the feet and the hat and the beak. We're going to build these up a little bit. So that goes on. Indian yellow on its own. And I'm just rotating the brush into the curves of the paper. Because this is a textured paper, it does take a little bit of manipulating that paint into the little bumps. But I really like it, and it means you can get this lovely smooth look with it. If you're using something like a cellulose paper or even a mixed media paper, you may find that with this kind of depth of paint, you may find it kind of lifts off a little bit. So use your favourite watercolour paper if you want to get this kind of really good effect. I'm just taking a little bit of that and I'm just dropping it in the base, just to give it a bit of contrast there, and then cleaning my brush, and then we're just going to merge that a little bit, just for a little bit of contrast there. I don't know what colour bow I'm going to do. I think I'll probably stick to the same colour that I put in the demo shot, and I'm going to put this on here. So this can go all over. Remember, we're going to add a bit of detail to these in a minute. Still using the same mix. It's important that you mix enough paint, and that's something, you know, if you're new to painting, you'll kind of get used to as you work through your watercolour journey, as you get to know how the paint handles. But it is important that the paint is the right consistency for this, rather than having to go over and over and over, because you want that solid looking line. So I'm going to add a bit more water, it's a bit discoloured. So we're going to put another layer on, just water, and then I'm picking up a tiny bit of that black and just dropping it in. This time I've gone a little bit textured, and instead of adding a solid colour, I've just kind of patted it in so it looks a little bit more ruffled, like that. I'm going to take a little bit of Vandyke brown, I'm going to add it to the red with a tiny bit of indigo. So I want to darken the red up. If you've got a burgundy colour, there isn't one in this set, so I'm trying to get this to be a nice dark colour. With this mix, is you're going to go into this little corner here, and you're going to create a few shapes like that. And also to the base like this. Then cleaning your brush, then you've guessed it, we're going to just blend this in to give a little bit more, so it looks less flat. I'm just going to merge that in like that. So all I did was add a little bit of brown to that. In this instance it was Vandyke brown and a little bit of indigo, just to darken up that red. But if you have got something like a Perylene maroon or any darker value, just to add that in. And then I'm just going to take a tiny bit of that colour and put it on the tip, again for a little bit of variation to stop it from looking so flat. I'm going to add some water to the grey and to the, let me put that around there for you. So we've got a little petal here of, we have a petal here of ivory black and a little petal of indigo, and I've just added a lot of water to get this really watery mix. And I'm going to add a little bit of this grey tone to the bobble on the top of the hat. And I'm going to do the same on this bit here, just a little bit of water, picking up those two colours and just dropping it in, because we want this to look like it's fluffy. There's a bit of texture there. We can pull out some shapes there if we want to. Same colours. And we're going to just put a little bit of the darker value here. I've just mixed them together. And I'm working around each of the little curves. And I'm going to put a bit of that darker value again on the, I've got the outside edge there and the inside edge there, so I'm going to put a little bit there just to balance it out. Once again, cleaning my brush. Oh, sorry, I hope you could see what I was doing there. I just dropped a little bit in. Sorry if I was out of shot, but you get the gist of what I'm doing. We're going to add a bit of water again. So I'm just going to put water on the rock. The water is slightly discoloured again. I've got a bit of grey on my brush, but that doesn't matter, okay? Get it on and pick up those two together and just drop it in here and there. Just randomly, and then we let that dry. Going back to this mix here, and then I'm going to do the same to the little bow. Just going to add a little bit of detail coming out, like that. If you wanted to, you could grab a little bit of Indian yellow on its own and glaze over some of that red just to give it a bit more contrast. Then what I'm going to do is let that dry so that we can put a bit of shading on the feet here. Let me zoom out because I'm too close to the camera. While I'm waiting for that to dry, I'm going to use my gel pen. This is a Uniball. It's a Signo. What I'm going to do with this is just add a dot here and a dot here. That's nice and easy. Let that dry. Looking at the beak, going back to the orange mix, any colour will do that's different to the colour that we have. And I'm going to put this on the bottom half of the beak. Like this. Just to give it a little bit of interest. I'm going to take a tiny bit of Indigo and Ivory black, and I'm going to use my number 4 brush with just some water on, and I'm going to go around the base. So just to here and to here, picking up that pigment and I'm dropping it in. Like that. Smoothing it out. By wetting the paper, you create this soft edge for that paint to go into. Just give it a little bit of a helping hand with your brush. I'd like to add a tiny bit of shading underneath the bow tie. Water first. Just use your brush just to blur the edge. Using my blender brush to soften the edges here. If you want to add some texture, you can just drop in a bit more black, just to give it something to sit on, rather than it floating into thin air. It just looks like a little bit of something there. Drop in a bit more if you want to. And I'm going to call this sweet little penguin finished. I've really enjoyed painting this today. It's been a lot of fun. We don't normally do this kind of thing here on our channel, but I've really enjoyed painting this sweet little thing. It would make a lovely Christmas card or even a little framed paint. It would make such a super painting or a lovely little present for somebody. So do join in with us and have some fun. We really love having you here with us here. So if you have enjoyed this video, could I ask you please to hit the thumbs up button below? It's a way of supporting me and it means that I can continue to grow my channel. Without you watching my content, I couldn't be here, so I'd really appreciate it. But remember to check out this free outline that you get over on Patreon. I will put the link to Patreon in the description box underneath this video. I will also list the colours that I have used today if I remember everything, and I'll put them in the description box again. But remember, the important thing is make yourself a colour chart. Match the colours yourself. Get used to seeing how they perform on paper. My name's Ray Campbell. This is our Christmas tutorial. Thank you so much for watching, and let's just take a moment to take a look at the hero shot, our finished painting. Thank you for watching. Happy holidays, everybody, and I'll see you next week.
Christmas is just around the corner.